Well, good morning, guys. It's Pastor Steve here. Just wanted to share a brief meditation with you. And this morning, I was meditating in Isaiah chapter 1. I was meditating in this last week in preparation for last Sunday, and just really impacted by the power of God's truth here in Isaiah 1. So we're going to look at the first few verses. But before we do, I just want to give a brief context that Isaiah was a prophet in Israel, and at the time that Isaiah was prophet, some of the kings were living in at least outward obedience to the Lord. And so when we open up the book of Isaiah here in chapter 1, that happens to be the scenario that the people, the king, were living in obedience to God's commands about sacrifices and worship, and you'll see that as we work through meditating on this chapter. This morning I just want to look at the first few verses, verse 2 through verse 4. The scripture says, "Listen, heavens, and pay attention, earth, for the Lord has spoken. I have raised children and brought them up, but they have rebelled against me. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's feeding trough. But Israel does not know. My people do not understand. O sinful nation, people weighed down with iniquity. Brood of evildoers, depraved children. They have abandoned the Lord. They have despised the Holy One of Israel. They have turned their backs on him." So here we have the Lord opening up with asking the land, the earth, and the heavens to listen. Interesting note that God calls on the earth and heavens to listen, because the people that claim to follow him, the people that call themselves by his name, are not listening to him. They're not listening to the Lord. They have the word of the Lord, but they're not listening to the Lord. So the Lord calls on the earth and the heaven to listen so that he can proclaim what he's about to say. And he starts by describing this as his children that he brought up. The ones that, not just the general care that happens where God says the rain falls on the just and the unjust. It's not just that he provides food and clothing for all people on the face of the earth. No. He's addressing his people. I have raised children and brought them up. So these are people that have known the Lord, that have claimed to be the Lord's people. These are ones that we can probably assume at one point in their life were faithful to the Lord, or at least understood what a faithful heart to the Lord looked like. But no, they're no longer listening to the Lord, though they're living in obedience to at least some of the Lord's commands and claiming to be his people. So he says, "They've rebelled against me. The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's feeding trough. But Israel does not know. My people do not understand." And there is the big key here is that they don't know God's voice. They don't know where to find their relationship with the Lord. I mean, you'll find out here in a bit as we go through this, they go to temple, they practice the sacrifices, they give, but they don't know where to find the Lord. It says, "O sinful nation, people weighed down with iniquity, brood of evildoers, depraved children. They have abandoned the Lord. They have despised the Holy One of Israel." Here we have this despising of the Holy One of Israel, which is, they would not say they have despised him. They would say they're living in obedience to him. But here they have despised him, and they've turned their backs on him. They've embraced sin as normal, and thereby, by embracing some sins as normal, they have rejected God's truth. And therein lies the big problem. And I think that this has such great parallels for where we are at today, that people who claim to be God's people, the church, those that say they love God, yeah, sin's a problem, but we really don't want to be, telling people what to do. We don't really want to be imposing. We don't want to be judgmental. And so we just let sin go without even acknowledging that it's a problem. We just, it's easier. It's more loving. It's godlike is the lie that we tell ourselves to not address sin. But here we have God addressing people that have claimed his name, that grew up knowing about him, and at one point in their life having a pure heart before him, but now, even though they follow all the right practices, they've turned their backs on the Lord. This is a little bit of a heavier meditation today, but I think one that we have to take time and consider as God's people. What is it that God expects of you and I? Well, he expects that we honor him through obedience because of what he's done for us. This isn't required for salvation in a sense that God saves us apart from what we do. But if we know that he's saved us and we know what he's done for us, then, Romans says that obedience to him is just logical. Listening to him, honoring him, choosing to know his voice and his truth. It just makes sense. So it's a good meditation for us as believers. I hope you find it encouraging and challenging. And we're going to continue on with some more meditation in Isaiah in the coming days. But God bless you. Have a great day. Go in peace.